you know, that's the same thing right there. Do the problem, we're just saying is my issue. You visible, just.
Now, if we have a roll call of members, please. Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Would we call what we just had? Athletic, so, okay. So currently we had a meeting over here. So let's get started with the special presentation. The first one is the apartment.
Okay, presenting the name of Mr. Harrington, Dr. Lately, Mrs. Sanders, really this idea that they've been working on for a couple of months now, targeted at a very specific population of students that we have here in the school district, and I think you'd be hopefully excited about it.
So what we're looking for them is, well, we're kind of just wanting an apartment program. Is you have to be able to do apartment because it's created program for each student who in their high school education but still has full eligibility through their special education program. This program develops independent daily living skills, functional learning skills, coaching, and social experiences through the community. We are searching for an apartment to rent in the downtown area of use to accommodate student engagement. We'll be participating in the program and to be used at a classroom site of the program. So the goal of the program would be to provide accessibility and independence in skills, provide community-based learning experiences to further their functional living skills, employability skills, job coaching and support, and also social adult experiences within the community. The location, we're looking for kind of a specific type of property. We would like a single unit that is handicap accessible. It has an open concept so we can facilitate the classroom spaces. We're looking for it to have a full bathroom, laundry, kitchen accessibility. We also would want it to be accessible where students could walk to local businesses and to the bus route and have parking availability. So the site is to be determined. If the programming is approved, we'd be putting in a request for proposal and then we'll be looking to have bidding open. And we have explored multiple sites throughout the community to date. As far as funding goes, if the program's approved, we'll be able to repurpose a teaching position, so it would not be an added position, but we would be looking to hire a special education support professional to support the program, and we would have special education aides with students as their programming aligned for that. We do have a meeting with the foundation to talk about some funding opportunities, and we have started to pursue grants through local and state options. We are looking to partner with some local businesses, as in that they wouldn't pay students to go and work within their businesses, but they would provide them with those learning opportunities. And then as needed, we would be looking to utilize the local budget. The general program schedule is kind of like what you would expect a typical school day to be, but dependent upon the individual student's needs, we would be looking at morning or afternoon community-based experiences for them or work experiences for them. Each day they would have daily assignments within the apartment that they would be working on some of those skills and also have all of their functional academic skills. The components of the apartment then, pretty standard to what you would assume. We want a locked door entry. We would like to have an instructional area. That open concept is part of that, where there's a large table that we're able to do the functional academic piece. Kitchen, bedroom, laundry, bathroom, and a variety of types of floors. And the idea is that through all of those experiences and cleaning and working within those areas, students would be able to then live as independently as their disability allowed them to. Some other components of the program, we already utilize unique learning systems within our self-contained classes here at the high school and at the junior high school. So we'd like to further use that. CareerLink is also willing to work with us on their BEP courses to give students some new experiences. Then we'd also be exploring a functional curriculum option. Transportation, we would provide transportation to and from the program just as the student's individual programming aligns to, but we would also be looking to potentially repurpose an athletic van or a mail van so the programming would have its own transportation. And then we would also be looking to utilize bus passes. Lunches would still be facilitated through METS, but then we would also give students the opportunity to utilize some of their cooking skills within the apartment as needed. And then custodial students would be working within the programming and cleaning the space. But we would also like for a school custodian to visit weekly just to make sure everything is maintained appropriately. Some community connections, we've been talking with some different components in the community. A lot of people are very interested in supporting us within it. We already utilize some of the places that I've listed there in our community-based instruction and through our self-contained classrooms. So we're hoping to be able to facilitate further partnerships with a lot of local places. So the last piece that I have there for you is just the draft programming outline. It's a couple pages long. It gives a little bit more detail. A lot of the information is included in the PowerPoint, but those are the big components of the program. If you have any questions. Right. We're just looking for one space ultimately. We talked about trying to repurpose a classroom here at the high school. We kind of moved away from that and trying to make it real world for them and having to go in and out of a real space. So the goal is really just a single unit as we're getting started. We're not projecting a large number of students, like probably under 10, more like within the 5 to 6 range as we get started because it's such a small number of students. But the idea would be that it's in like a truly functional space that they would experience just like if they were an adult in the community, not in school age programming. We've explored some different areas within downtown in some different spaces. Do you want to talk that out?
Yeah, Erica brought this proposal to me like a month ago, and I said yes. And as you can see, when she has an idea, you get out of her way. So within a day, she had 2 pages of an outline of an idea and so forth. So we've talked to some local people who do own some apartments and that, and we've kind of learned a lot of throughout that about different zoning rules and everything. So we're going to put it out for an FRP request for a proposal and trying to get someone who has something like this, but we have reached out and we have discussed it with a few people with coming up with what we would need to house this program. We would rent the unit from them for the time period for like 1 year. We would not be staying there. We'd be using that classroom from the school time hours and possibly over the summer for extended school year with these students. So we wouldn't be staying over. We'd be providing rent to that person. So it would just be for our students for the school district. Because we are seeing a number of students, they're able to stay till they're 21. We're seeing a number of students that maybe don't fit quite into the CTC, but we need to provide more services to them. And that's why we're looking at the apartment program. Any other questions with it? There was one, the IU had one years ago. They ran at the Ramada. We're kind of basing a little bit off of that, where they used to run this that different school districts could use. But we feel like we have enough students that we could run this program with just our students. No, we would transport the student in like their school day. They'd be transported there at 7:30 in the morning. They would do different community outings, do different things in that apartment. Then at the end of the day at 2:30, they would be transported back to their house. Yeah, for students who are like 20, 21 years old, it would be for those type of students.
What would the census be, you think? On average?
I mean,
4 or
we
5?
have not talked to families yet because we obviously don't have it approved. We were anticipating like less than 5 to start, no more than 10 within the first couple years we would be doing it. So, I mean, I would say probably less than 5 as we're getting started. We have some students outlined that we would, be requesting from their families if they would be interested. Ultimately, they could continue within their programming here at the high school though as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so just to clarify, what we'll be asking for in June is consideration for approval of the program. And because we are not scheduled to have a board meeting in July, authorization that when the RFP would come back, board approval to go ahead and accept the lowest bid for that educational space that we would be looking to secure so that we can have that ready to roll for the start of the school year.
It's really not a bid, it's an RFP.
Or an
And
RFP.
when you bid, you have to take basically the lowest proposal, but with RFPs, you get to pick and choose whichever one is in the best interest of the school district. So I did see bidding on there, didn't see it till now, but that should just put, a request for proposal will then go out as opposed to bidding.
I only have one question. And would be the exact location of this potential spot? I mean, we're saying downtown area, or what are we referring to here?
We just would like it to be a space that meets our specifications, but then also is easily accessible to some of the different components of downtown. We don't have an established site at this point. It'll have to go to the RFP.
Okay, I was just curious because there's the number of buildings all around that area
Yeah, absolutely.
that can be utilized. But again, the question is exactly where do you want to locate it? That's my only concern.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about the different restrictions and things because it's not going to be truly residential and what that impacts, like with what our availability options are. So with the RFP, hopefully whoever meets our specifications, that will give us the answer then kind of on where we should be. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item B under special presentations, budget and finance report.
Okay, I'm going to defer to Sue and Camilla, primarily Sue. At your tables, you'll see both the budget narrative and an overview. That is your bound document, as well as an overview of the committee, the whole presentation for tonight. Much of this will look very familiar to you, as it is a reiteration of some things that we've been going through the process since the fall and early winter to begin the process of planning for budgeting and looking at the upcoming budget that is going to be on for approval on June 17th. So Sue, go ahead and turn things over.
And I'm going to offer my apologies now in case there's a difference between the printed version I have on your tables. Somewhere between my office and here, the saving on the network was different. So there might be small anomalies. So my apologies if I speak to something or the presentation on the screen is slightly different than what's here. That's the accountant in me tweaks it to that perfection level, and it doesn't always get there, but so that's where we are. So I'm going to start out by not being able to switch between my screens. There it goes. So I wanted to review kind of what went into the budget. So the presentations that we have done throughout this fiscal year. So I'm going to just hit highlights of those so that it's not monotonous and redundant to what we've been through. The 22-23 comparative information from the state came out just last week. So we've updated a lot of our numbers to include the most recent data there. And then I have slides that I've pulled out of your bound budget book. So this book has a lot of detail and the line item information that are from the slide presentation. You can dig down to as much detail as you want in this budget book. If you have questions, as always, Camilla and I are very, very welcome to sit down and chat with you and give you any additional information you might want. So moving on, if you remember correctly, in October, we started all of our presentations with the COVID funding and the pandemic funding, and all the ESSER programs are ending in September of this year. So we presented to you what we were calling our structural deficit. So the last couple years, we've supplanted number of line items, most specifically salaries and wages, with ESSER funding. So those amounts are listed on your screen. We are projecting in the 23-24 year a structural deficit of about $4.4 million. So that's kind of the high point. What we're trying to get, what we're trying to overcome is that deficit that we've been experiencing the last couple of years. So the budget, as we looked through them, we're trying to eliminate that deficit going forward. Correct. No, we can only for expenditures that go through September. And we've pretty much spent all of it. I don't think there's any money going into 24-25 fiscal year. Haley and her team and Camilla have been really great on making sure that we don't hand any of that money back to the government. Here's the comparison of where we are as a district compared to other districts within the state. So our enrollment has declined slightly from 7,515 down to 7,468. However, we remain 37th in the state as far as size of school districts. So which to me says that most all districts within the Commonwealth are experiencing a slight decline in enrollment. Our expenditures, and this is our total expenditures with the exception of bond refunding amounts. We were 57 out of 500 districts last year in the 21-22 year. We have dropped that we are now 60th out of 500 districts in total expenditures, although our line item has increased, as you can see there. Our per pupil cost has gone from $15,889 per pupil to $16,496. So we've increased about $600 per pupil, but our state ranking in that area has decreased, so that we're doing the most with our money to serve our students. We also talked about the revenue with our peer group. So I pulled out a new peer group, different from what we presented. So I updated it. So 5 people that are above us in revenue income and the 5 people that are below us. You can see that our average daily membership, so our enrollment continues to be the highest within that peer group. One of the things that jumped out at me is our local revenue number is only 25% of our budget. Our total revenue compared to the other districts within our peer group. The closest one is at 66.9%. So we're only at 25%. So we are largely supported by both the state and the local our state and federal government as far as our budget goes. Any questions there? We moved into March. We talked about our unfunded mandates. So I'm just going to zip through those as a reminder. Our retirement expenditures over revenue. We continue to see a gap. Last year in 22-23, it was over $6 million that the school district funded and that was not reimbursed from the state or the federal or any area. Well, it came out of local funds. Special education funding is another unfunded mandate. So that number continues to grow. You will see the gray number there, a gray bar is our revenue for special education funding. If you remember correctly, we received a nice change in basic education funding from the state and from the governor's administration. That same benefit is not floating through to special ed funding. So we continue to see a large gap between our special education expenditures and the funding that we're receiving for that program, those programs. It's, it's getting close to $10 million right now, which is a substantial amount of money that we're covering. Transportation is the other unfunded mandate that's costing the district a substantial amount of money. The shortfall in 23-24 was close to $3 million. These numbers are slightly skewed because of the pandemic. I don't know if all of you remember or not, but the Alton Area School District voted to support our transportation provider during the pandemic when they were not running buses. We were very generous to help support them. In turn, the state gave us a reimbursement that was similar to the prior year. So that skews these numbers a little bit, that it looks like our expenses are way out of line compared to prior years. We do have the luxury of being able to look more in depth at our routing this year, so we're hoping to bring those expenses down. The other thing that we talked about in April was the Act 1 index. If you remember, we're at a historically high Act 1 index, so the district has the ability to raise taxes at a level that we have never been able to experience in at least in my memory or Camilla's memory. So the current base, we are currently taxing our real estate at 6.7502 mils. If we would increase to the max, that would allow us to tax at a rate of 7.27 mils. Based on our current assessment, you can see there the collectible real estate tax line, which is near the bottom, or I'm sorry, the increase over base. At a 5% increase, which is what I have included in this budget, we would see an increased revenue of about $1 million. If we raised fully to the index, we would see an increase of potentially $1.6 million. The average or the median property right at this, as of the report from the county at the beginning of May, was $107,900. So I use that to show the change in real estate taxes for that median property. So currently they are receiving real estate taxes of $728.34. Again, if we raise to the to 5%, that would be $764.76, which is a change of about $34. Goes rising to the index. Is a change of about $50. We'll give or take a couple dollars there. The homestead allocation has increased this year. So we are seeing a change in the homestead farmstead amount that homeowners will receive. So it's increasing and we're projecting it to increase about $39 per property. Now we have approximately, I ran the number here. Let me flip my pages to get caught up with where I'm talking. We have 6,172 property owners that are within the homes that have filed for homestead, farmstead, that will see no change at all in their taxes if we raised to the 5% level. So we have 12,000 people that qualify for homesteading. Half of those are at the $107,900 or below. So they will see no changes in taxes if we would do this.
Are there any statistics out there to show how many people take advantage of that? Like what percentage of our population even takes advantage of that
Let me
exclusion?
flip. If you look here on this slide that's coming up in the presentation, we have 21,291 residential properties within the Alton Area School District. 12,349 of those have been awarded homestead status. So that's a little over 58% of our people take advantage of that tax benefit. Does that answer your question? The other thing that we spoke about in April, and I updated this slide based on most recent data. The STEB market value, which is created by or awarded by or set by the State Board of Equalization, shows that the Alton Area School District has a market value, which is our taxable market, our taxable base of about $2.6 billion. So that number is used to create the equalized mills number, which I'm presenting here. So we rank 483 out of the 500 Pennsylvania school districts in equalized mills, which at 10.8. So if you remember, our real estate taxes are at 6.7502, which is the lowest real estate tax in the state. Equalized mills, which incorporates our business privilege, mercantile, per capita, all those other local taxes, we're at 483 out of 500. But if you look at that STEB market value compared to the other people that are in our peer group we are, almost double the closest person within that peer group. Our taxes collected, although higher than most everybody else, are significantly lower compared to our market value rate. And our total revenue, which includes, if you remember, a significant portion of state funds and federal funds, is higher than the rest of the group, but our local taxes are lower. Did that make sense? Well, and that's what I'm trying to point out, that we are at a revenue level that's compared to our peer group with much, much smaller communities. So we're taxing at a rate that's much lower than our market value would compare. Does that make sense? We have a stronger market value, yes, but we're not applying a tax rate compared to what other people with our same market value are doing. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's just a matter of interpretation.
I don't know.
I mean, we're not realizing the value of a significantly larger pool. I mean, we just aren't.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, the reason that these were put in, so if you look at the rank equalized mills, she tried to give you in that list a comparison of other districts that rank at the 460 to 490, what they're taxing at versus what their local effort is versus what our local effort is, despite our capability in terms of local tax effort. Susan, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And the confusing part, and there is only 28 school districts within the state of Pennsylvania that collect the business privilege and mercantile tax and some of the other taxes that we collect here in Altoona. So you can't compare us just strictly on real estate mills, which is why I'm using this equalized mills rate to kind of compare us to other people within the state of Pennsylvania.
So even with us using those other tools at our disposal, we're still
Very, very low
Pretty
compared to a
low,
lot
yeah.
of other people. Yeah, for the 37th highest school district or largest school district in the state, we collect taxes. They're in the lowest, 2%.
So if you just go back to page 5, the highlighted, so districts that are comparable, truly comparable to us financially, when you look at total revenue, they're taxing, their local percentage of tax effort is anywhere from 60 to 83%. Ours is 25. So I think if you're looking at a number that really highlights and drives home what we're trying to say is that, we've done a very good job of keeping our taxes at a very low rate when compared to other districts of similar ADM, similar size, similar demographics. We're only taxing the community at more than half of what most districts our size are.
Much more eloquent than I said. Thank you very much.
We do. We're fortunate to get our state aid and our federal aid is higher than most places. Sure, absolutely. And that's due to our demographic and
Yeah,
a lot of the
our
finances.
poverty
work.
rate,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. And I've spoken on this before, our real estate tax assessment. We are starting to rebuild our assessed values. We saw a significant decline after reassessment, and that's part of the normalization of the reassessment process. In the 2021 timeframe, we saw some decline in the assessed value of the Logan Valley Mall. Some of our properties are starting to rebound there, but we are still not back at the level we were prior to reassessment. And I spoke already about the homestead properties and how, we're at 58% of our residential people enjoy that benefit. Any questions on the historical information that just as the review process? As we step into the budget that we're proposing that will be on the agenda on the 17th for your vote. These pages, these next couple slides are direct copy from the budget book that's in front of you as well. So I wanted to speak to the preliminary, the revenues. These revenues, the local revenue line is projected with a 5% proposed tax increase. So that would take our revenue up to $34.6 million on the local line. The state revenue number includes the estimated numbers coming from the governor's office that they're saying will happen for the 24-25 fiscal year. Although that budget has not passed, we are very hopeful that we will see those increases in basic education funding. The federal revenue line you can see is returning to the level it was pre-pandemic. So in 1920, we were at $5.2 million in federal revenue. We are projecting 5.4 million this year, which takes us back to that line. Expenditures are similar. The bulk of our expenditures, of course, are in instruction. Those include curriculum costs, salaries and benefits for our instructional staff. Support services are also, that's where transportation is and some of the other, and buildings and grounds. Those kind of budgets are within the support services line. The 3,000s include non-instructional services, things like athletics and student activities. That 5,000 other expenditures and financing uses, that's basically our debt service. So that shows we are projecting $121 million worth of expenditures in the 24-25 fiscal year. This slide breaks it down by object code. And as you can see, benefits and salaries encompass the majority of the expenditures, followed closely by other purchase services, which is the 500 object code. That includes cyber tuitions, outside placements, substitute teachers, and those types of expenditures. There is a line by line breakdown in your budget book of these by each category, instructional category, buildings and grounds, administrative services, those types of things. This budget does include a reduction. So we are projecting we will need to use $1.5 million worth of fund balance to balance the budget. So that will take our fund balance from the projected $35 million at the end of 23-24 down to $33.5 million after we use this money. If we were able to hold the line on this kind of a budget, this will get us through, we're hopeful in a perfect world, 2032, I wrote it down. When they are projecting that the Peters money will go back down to a normalized rate. So keeping our fingers crossed, we are making progress to be able to get, yeah, we've got a ways to go yet. I think I spoke to most of the top cost drivers within our budget. Salaries continue to be the biggest expenditure that we have as a school district. somewhere along the line, somebody said, well, that's our inventory. So that makes the most sense that the majority of our expenses are with our people, which is where that should be. Retirement is about 15% of our expenses. Hospitalization runs about 7 to 8%. Special education costs are 16% of the budget, and cyber charter and outside placements are just over 7%. One of the other things that I thought I ought to throw out there, just so that everybody is fully informed, our 5-year plan contains about $9.3 million worth of things that we are seeing as a high need within the next 5 years. Those lines that are highlighted in gray total about just over $1 million. Those are projects that are in process or have bids currently out there. So that those are also monies. Our capital reserve is running about $5 or $6 million right at the minute. So we have the funds to pay for this stuff that's currently in process. But going forward, we're going to have to fund that as well. These are the things that just a quick summary of the budget cuts and the changes that we are showing within this budget. Brad has spoken in the past about the approximately $600,000 decrease that we've been able to do by restructuring the Altoona Cyber Academy instruction. Camilla and I have also worked very closely to reduce some administrative costs for our healthcare. The buildings have looked really hard at their budgets. We've been able to cut about $50,000 out of supply costs at a building level. Buildings and Grounds also took about $200,000 out of their budget to reduce their expenditures. Then Haley and her team have been applying for and working on competitive grants. So at least to date, we've added another $225,000 into next year's budget as a competitive grant revenue that'll pay for some of our social workers and security greeters. There are a couple other grants that we're keeping our fingers crossed that we will get information on those within the next couple weeks. That is all I have on the budget presentation.
You know, there are some that want lower, some want higher. And so I don't know I know Bobby and I spoke the other day, and he's 6%, you know, he'd go 6. And I don't know where everybody else is at. And everybody feels comfortable with 5, or you want lower. And it's something to discuss. I think, you know, that we should get it on the table. And see where we're at. But, you know, if we go to the max, that means no using any fund balance. If we go to the max.
Yeah.
That would eliminate the deficit for next year.
Well, we'd still have $1 million. It would give us another 600,000 if we went to the max. Yes.
So, and there's things that are good and bad in each you know, I don't know if 5% is enough, but you know, you gotta look at your tax base. And I don't know, 4%, I don't think 4% will go. 6%, you know, it's 4 or 6%, or 5 or 6, you know. It's a matter of opinion, so I don't know where everybody else is at. You know, so, you know, I don't want to come to June and we're voting no on a budget because this person wants 7, this person wants 6. Well, you know, it's like, you know, at least get some sort of, you know, consensus.
I was just gonna suggest, we'll obviously have an executive session before the next regular board meeting, and maybe in that session, sort of come out with some kind of idea where everybody stands.
There's a problem.
It's such a,
You can't discuss that in exec.
you can't, okay. All right,
So it's got
public, okay.
and I'll start the ball. I'm at 5. I'm a firm believer in 5. I think it's a fair spot. You know, that's wrong. So
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I think I'm more 3.5 to 4, but it's up for debate.
Mike?
I'm kind of caught between Dave and Justin. It's just one of those things I'm not sure right now. I want some more information, I guess what I'm getting at, but I'm between 3.5 to 5, somewhere in that vicinity as well.
Okay, Stephanie? Go on.
And I'm the opposite. I'd probably be on the higher end, the 6%.
Okay, and I'm probably in the neighborhood of 4 myself. So, so it's all out there. So I think last year we sort of had a negotiation during the meeting and we met in the middle of all 3 or 4 positions and probably will end there again. But, as long as we're all respectful of each other's, opinion and
Last couple of years, proposal, you and I back to lower it down.
Mhm.
So, so it's good to discuss it.
Yep.
Right now, we can discuss it at the June meeting, but you know, we have an idea where some of where people are at. So, so this is marked at 5. If we go 4 or 6, whatever, so we can adjust from there.
I will prepare multiple tax resolutions.
we'll try and keep them round percentages. No, 4.46 or something like that. We'll,
So just for some guidance, would you like us to have a proposal at 6, a proposal at 5, and a proposal at 4?
I would graduate them into the halves also.
Okay.
So I would start 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. So we don't have to.
So for your reference then from the packet from tonight, if you want to know what the actual dollar amount for those increases would be, Sue has that in here for your reference. Let me give you the exact page. No, I think it was
Page 10.
10.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, page 10 where it says increase over base. So if you follow vertically from the top, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6, 7, 7.5, that will tell you the dollar figure. And then also give you the impact, the dollar impact that would be on the median household in Altoona. And again, where we kind of, the mindset behind 5 was that at 5, your median household would not realize any tax increase if they applied and are eligible for homestead farmstead. That's why we landed at that number as kind of a starting point. For your 60% of our homeowners would not realize a tax increase at 5%.
Dave, thanks for your veteran leadership in bringing that up now. Appreciate it. Anybody else have anything for the good of the group here while we're here?
Just to think about it, but if anyone read the article today about how kids are still affected with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when we had the extra money, we spent money on counselors and social workers that try to help these kids. I don't know what percentage of the kids are still having trouble here. But I sure as heck don't want to lose any of those people that we hired.
So I'm happy to report that we've not only been able to maintain all of those mental health and social worker professionals, we've actually increased the level of service that we've had, particularly at our elementary buildings, to try to hit kids where, before they continue to have issues, as we move through. We've added multiple services for students. From mental health, we were able to retain 2 social workers at the secondary level that were grant funded. And we've also increased some services targeted at students who are homeless and or regular education students. So through all of this, we've increased supports and services and programming for students. They'll offer after school tutoring for whether they're cyber or whether they're in person. We still offer those services as well. whether it be private or provided within the schools. And we're offering health and wellness after school, access to our fitness centers and things for students as well. Thankful to foundation grants and other funding sources that we have. We're able to provide those accesses to students that might not otherwise have those opportunities. So again, we are continually looking to expand services and programming for students, while maintaining fiscal responsibility.
All right, anybody else? Nobody else? I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?